Hi, my name is Caitlin and I donated a kidney to my dad a little over 2 years ago. My dad was really fortunate enough to not need to go on dialysis prior to the transplant surgery. And the reason for this is because I had just been approved as a donor match. He qualified for dialysis and could have gone on the wait list, which is about 6 to 7 years long in the state of California. But we were very lucky that I was approved as a match just in the nick of time. We still felt a lot of emotions during this time, certainly a mixture of relief that he didn't need to go on dialysis, coupled with some sense of nervousness and anxiety around the idea of me donating as his daughter, but also a sense of eagerness, of urgency, and excitement that this could be the solution. When I started to learn what kidney failure is, I think I was most surprised to learn that, first and foremost, the wait list for a transplant in California, let alone any other state in the United States, is so long. 7 years on average is much too long for anyone to have to wait for. And so I remember our hearts sank at that idea, because before any of us knew that we could potentially be a match for my dad and my family, our immediate reaction was, let's get him on the list so that we don't waste any time. But even to get on that list, you need to qualify for dialysis. So your kidneys have to be functioning very little. And when my dad first learned about his kidney failure as a diabetic, he has type 1 diabetes, he is insulin dependent, his kidneys were certainly deteriorating, but not at a rapid rate in the beginning that would qualify him for the list. So I am very frustrated with that, because I understand that people who qualify for dialysis should have priority, but there was something really disheartening and discouraging about the idea that we knew that his kidneys were failing him, and yet we couldn't even really move the process along to get a match if we weren't one. Another thing I was surprised to learn is that my mom first tried to be a match, and she passed all the tests leading up to the last one, where they found a couple kidney stones in her system. And I didn't realize that that in particular would be something that would make them consider not having her donate at all, because it would make her more susceptible to kidney stones down the line. And again, another roadblock where we were so convinced that that could be the solution. Another thing that I was surprised about in learning about kidney failure was when it came to the diet my dad had to implement. I knew that there would be some diet required that seemed natural, but I remember thinking it was really peculiar that it was so specific. For example, he could have oranges but not tangerines, or vice versa. And so having to constantly look for very specific ingredients when creating meals for him, or cooking, or going out to eat. The reason I decided to be a donor was pretty much a no-brainer for me. My mom tried to be a donor for my dad prior to me, and she was denied, as well as his best friend. And so really, it just felt like an impulse, but a very natural, loving one, if that makes sense. I didn't think about fear or pain or any repercussion. It was like, I knew my responsibility in that moment was to help. And I thought at first, okay, let's just see if I'm even a match. There's no telling, right? Let's just go through the motions. So as I continued to pass all the tests, it became more and more clear that this could be my reality. And I was very much at peace with it. It's just odd. I just didn't think about it that much, but not out of a sense of naivety. It was like, I'm so close with my dad. I love him so much. I want him to survive. If this is the only means to do so, let's do it. I think the thing I was most surprised to learn about during my research on being a donor and living kidney donation in general is that for the donor, recovery is really quick. It's like 3 to 4 weeks. Maybe you feel some sense of discomfort and tenderness, but for the most part, life is back to normal. You can very quickly get back into your regular active regimen, give or take like 1 or 2 months. And the chances of something complicating that, or the risk involved, is lower than I thought. And the number of successful organ transplant surgeries far outweigh the number of unsuccessful surgeries. So that was comforting. My family was definitely worried about me being a donor to my father in the beginning, and rightfully so. I'm the youngest in our family, and I am my father's daughter. I'm his baby. And I think there is certainly a level of emotional turmoil that has to come with that dynamic, right? Where your child, someone you've cared for the majority of your life, is offering to literally cut out a piece of their body to keep you alive. And I think my dad really struggled with that in the beginning. He felt a lot of guilt around that idea. And my mom felt a lot of nervousness, immediately worried, what if surgery didn't work out? What are the complications? How would it impact my health? But I was able to help them understand my decision in affirming to them that this was my choice. No one pressured me or forced me into it. If anything, I felt like I had to be the one to force them to agree to it in a way. Like, hey, look, we don't have this luxury of waiting around, and I'm a match. I want to do this. Let me do it. And just by keeping that open, transparent dialogue with them was really healthy for us. They saw me communicating to other family members and friends that this was something I really wanted to do. And we had heart to hearts about it all the time. We were honest with one another. And I, again, was just very firm in my belief that I really love my dad so much. I want him to stay alive, and this was our best option for doing that. I did have fears and questions about the process. Some of these included, first and foremost, what are the odds that the surgery will work and that my dad's body will accept my kidney? Can I live on just one kidney? What are the repercussions for me donating? What are the risks involved? Will this end my life? Or will my life expectancy, I should say, be impacted by this? How long will it take to heal? Do I have to change my diet or my lifestyle? How will my dad's life change post-surgery? Certainly an endless list of questions, but there are some great resources online and in books and within social circles of people who have been through similar experiences that were really useful in answering them. I was able to resolve a lot of the fears I had in the donation process pretty early on because I was really lucky. I had a friend in a social circle in San Francisco who happened to know a girl who donated a kidney to her dad. And that was such a huge help, being able to call her and vent or ask questions. And she had lived through all of it, so she could point to her own experience, which was more valuable than talking to a doctor about it or reading it on paper. It was really crucial to my recovery process and just put me at ease because I had a friend to confide in who knew what I was going through. I used a lot of different sources of information to learn about kidney donation and organ donation in general. And this included a lot of blogs and forums of people who had gone through the surgery, who were living donors. It even included YouTube videos of testimonials. I also relied heavily on my nurses and doctors for information, and again, my personal connection, my friend Yael, who had gone through the surgery herself. I do remember having some financial concerns when I first decided to become a donor. I wanted to know, would my insurance cover the surgery? Would my dad's insurance cover his surgery? Would I be able to skip that much work? Because recovery takes at least a month in the beginning. And so there was a little nervousness on that subject, but I immediately took the initiative to ask those questions to my doctors, my nurses, my insurance companies, and my employer. I sat them down and arranged a work from home situation, which I recognize is a luxury, and I'm really grateful for that. It's not everyone's reality, but I didn't have to worry about the bills being paid. Insurance fully covered the cost of surgery, and I was still able to generate an income and pay rent while I was recouping at my parents' house. I think having a support system in this process is crucial as the donor, as the recipient, as family and bystanders to it occurring. It's an emotional thing and it's really difficult. It's very serious. So I stress that it's so important to keep communication open, to be vulnerable in front of one another, express fears and concerns, and just establish close connections with people that you trust and that mean a lot to you, that are there to support you. Lean on them. During recovery, my lifestyle changed. I was resting for a full month after the surgery, and I'm naturally a very active person, so I wasn't able to do things outdoors such as hiking or climbing or surfing, and that was the biggest transition, but I recognized my body needed to rest and I didn't have as much energy. I also wasn't eating as regularly as I normally do. I remember after surgery, I craved a lot of smoothies, fruit, oatmeal, maybe some soup. And so I lost a little bit of weight initially after surgery, but then gained it back rather steadily afterwards once I got back into my normal routine. Otherwise, my lifestyle did not change at all. It took about 8 hours in total for the surgery, which is abnormally long. Usually it's supposed to take about half that amount of time. But the reason it took so long, the doctor said, is because I have a smaller midsection and it was trickier to get to the kidney before transferring it into my dad's body. So the surgery took about 8 hours and I was in the hospital, I want to say for no longer than 4, max 5 days. If I could share a tip about the hospital, it would be to really listen to your body and what your body needs. I remember one nurse rushing me to get out of the bed to start walking. And no matter what, that's going to be a really difficult initial step because you feel really sore and it's painful to move any part of your body. But I also remember thinking that I wasn't ready yet. I needed like one more day to just lay low. And sure enough, I remember trying to get up when she suggested it, even though it didn't feel right for me. And it was like excruciatingly painful. And the doctor came in and said, "Hey, look, please, just keep her put for another day." So hone in on that feeling, that intuition. Rely on friends to bring you good food because hospital isn't always the best. Comfortable pajamas. You'll likely be in a hospital gown with blankets. I was asleep for so much of the time because my body was so tired that I don't remember a ton about this day, aside from how difficult it was to initially walk, and that the food wasn't all that great. The best moment after my surgery was definitely waking up to my mom in the hospital room and seeing her face, knowing that the surgery was successful, learning that my dad's body did accept the kidney. And I remember because of the medication, it went by like a flash. Like one moment I was going under and into the surgery room, and the next I was sprawled out on a hospital bed with my mom in the room. And I just remember her having happy tears in her eyes, and we were both just really relieved that the hardest part was over, and that it was a success. I was back to myself about 5 weeks after surgery. That's when I didn't feel as much soreness when I was moving and was back to work and doing the things I love. While I was recovering at home, I wasn't very mobile in the beginning. I would rest in bed or on the couch and could watch TV, I could eat, I could read, I could have conversations. I remember though it was difficult to laugh in the beginning. It would really hurt my area where the stitches were. And it was a running joke with my brother. I was like, don't make me laugh. And he would try to, and I'd have to take a pillow and like hold it against my stomach so that it wouldn't hurt. And then I think after 2 weeks, I was really diligent about going on long walks in my neighborhood. And I want to say by week 2 or even 1.5 weeks in, I was making myself go on 3-mile long walks every day. And by the end, I was really sore in the beginning, but then it became easier and easier each day and really helped me in my mobility. What I couldn't do, I couldn't walk right away or as easily. I would have to make myself. I didn't really have a big appetite. I couldn't laugh. I couldn't do any physical activity whatsoever. After donating a kidney, my health really hasn't changed at all. It's still really great. There's been no complication or new diagnosis of any sort of thing. I'm as healthy as I could be. I became more aware of my health in this process by staying hydrated. They encourage that, especially with only one kidney post-surgery, and I can go a long time without drinking water. So this just propels me to always carry a water bottle with me and continue to stay hydrated since you only have one kidney, pumping through some things. And I have always been a healthy eater. So that hasn't really changed, but I think about my alcohol consumption a little more. I work at a winery, and it's very common for me to enjoy a glass of wine or a beer with dinner. And I'm just a little bit more intentional behind that and don't do it as frequently since, again, I only have one kidney to process that. When I shared my story with people, the questions I often get are how I came to the decision to donate to my dad. Was it a difficult decision to make? Was it really painful? How long did it take to recover? Do I feel anything different now? Basically, all the questions you first think about when you decide to donate. Nothing out of the ordinary. But what's interesting is afterwards, there is a bit of this hero complex where, I don't know, for a while after surgery, I would walk into a grocery store with my mom, and my mom would immediately share with every clerk that I had just given a kidney to my dad. And everyone's always like, oh my gosh, that's so incredible, and always very complimentary and very kind about it. But to me, it just didn't feel like this revolutionary thing. It was like so common sense to me, and I just didn't really want that kind of attention. And even now, if people ask about my scar, or if I do reveal it organically in conversation, people are always really taken aback by it. So it's humbling, but it's just kind of bizarre because I don't really think about it at all anymore unless I look at my scar and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that 2 years ago. Overall, what surprised me the most about this experience is that I don't really feel like I've been drastically impacted by it. Maybe there are subtle emotional connections that have surfaced amongst me and my dad, but otherwise, I honestly forget about it a lot of the time. I think I thought it was going to be more of my story, like it was the thing I would reveal about myself to strangers when sharing an interesting fact about me, and it's kind of just, it happened and it was a success, and I don't think about it. And that was the most surprising thing. I wasn't surprised that my dad's body accepted the kidney. That seemed really promising. I wasn't surprised that it was painful during recovery, anything like that. Just that it's as if it never happened in a way. I think hands down the best thing about donating a kidney to my dad was getting to keep him alive, keeping him around longer, getting to have years of life together that maybe we wouldn't have had we not found that I was a match, or even if we found a donor at all. So those things are priceless, right? I can't put into words what it means for us and our family And my dad's one of my best friends. I adore him, and I can't bear the thought of doing life without him. So that's the biggest part. And it just happens to connect us even more now, because he has my organ in his body. But just having him here is the most important thing. The best advice I could give anyone thinking about donating an organ is one, that it's okay to be scared and to question it and to not be sure, to be nervous, anxious. All those things are very human and important to feel. So let yourself feel them. And it's a big decision. It's not a light one to make. So really think about whether or not this is something you really want to do, and for the right reasons. I would also suggest that not to expect the donation to necessarily fully heal or fix the individual. And by that, what I mean is, even if it's a successful donation, which in my case it was, when my dad goes to his checkups, he's right where he should be. His numbers are exactly on point. His health looks good. But emotionally, we have had some ups and downs. My dad struggled with depression post-surgery. He didn't have a lot of energy prior to surgery due to his diabetes. But we felt a little misled by doctors because they said once he received the new kidney, he would have so much energy that it would make him feel invincible. And that wasn't the case. He still struggles to walk more than 3 blocks at a time without feeling winded, and can't do the physical activities that he thought he might be able to regain after surgery. So again, just know that it's not your fault if they feel any sort of sadness or depression after the surgery, and that it's okay if it doesn't heal them completely. I know it might be hard to understand what that means before giving it, but just the act of attempting it and wanting it to work and being hopeful there is still a beautiful thing. And organ donation is a gift, as cliche and cheesy as it might sound. I know it's on all the slogans, but it really is the gift of life, and there's no better gift to give anyone. You're granting them more time on this earth with the people they love. So definitely give it a lot of thought if you're considering it. Ask questions, and just know that if it works out and you decide to do it, it's a really selfless thing, and I commend you and wish you the best of luck. And just know that you always have a resource to reach out to if needed. So you're not alone.